Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Planning Committee on Thursday, the 18th of September. This is a public meeting, and members of the public and press are permitted to report on the proceedings. Reporting includes filming, photography, making an audio recording, and providing commentary on proceedings. Please note this meeting is recorded and streamed live, and these recordings are published on the relevant meeting page on the Council's website. By choosing to attend this public meeting, you are deemed to have given your consent to being filmed or recorded and for any footage to be broadcast or published. If the alarm sounds, the premises must be evacuated immediately. Do not spend time collecting personal belongings. All emergency escape routes are clearly signed once you've left the building. The assembly points on the High Street opposite the Guildhall. And as usual, please remember to use your microphones, speaking at a nice volume into them, including me. Okay, lovely, thank you. Margaret, do I have any substitutes or apologies, please?
Yes, Chair, we've got apologies from Councillor Amos and we've got Councillor De Serra for Councillor Udall. Thank you.
Okay. Great, thank you. We've got one item today which is a City Council item, so I've just got Steph to do a declaration of interest.
Thank you, Chair. The item before you forms part of the Council's wider Arches project, which members may have been involved in various committees that will have seen over various aspects of the project. I'm comfortable that this is a very specific application and won't be something that you've looked at before. So unless anybody's got a specific declaration about Arch 64, I'm happy for you all to participate and vote. No? Great. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Steph. So now we're moving to the minutes of previous planning committee, and we've got 2 months because obviously we didn't have a meeting, did we? And in June they weren't ready for July. So if we start with June, I'll go through page by page. Page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Councillor Rudge.
Thank you, Chair. Page 11, paragraph 3 says, the applicant will provide a new head wall and restored, comma. Is that a grammatical error? I've had a... looks like there may be a word missing. It's paragraph 3, 2 lines up from the bottom. It says, the applicant will provide a new head wall and restored, comma. I'm just trying to work out what that means. Restored pipe, restored head wall.
Be restored? Yeah, so it is just the new head wall. Paul?
I can't find where we're talking about it at the moment.
It's here.
Chair, if I can, I've had a comment from a resident saying,
We don't take third-party comments. It's for you to comment on the
okay.
meetings. So you can raise it in your capacity.
Okay.
If you like.
Yes, if that could be clarified then as to, it's not clear to me whether, well, it's not clear to me what that means, and I'm not quite sure whether it means that this comes under section 106 agreement or whether, how that works exactly.
So, Councillor Rudge, is your question that it's not just the head wall and it's more than the head wall?
Yes.
Because it doesn't make sense, the sentence? Because it says the applicant will provide a new head wall and restored, but no further works being carried out. So what is your specific question, that it's a new head wall and something restored? Are you saying that there's a word missing?
Yes,
or
it sounds to me like there's something missing.
Right, okay, thank you, that helps. Councillor Agar?
For information, I responded to an email from planning on the matter of the head wall, and that has actually been approved and going through the process. I can't remember the exact wording of it. Perhaps Paul can enlighten us.
In terms of the minutes, let's start with that point. It's in response to the question about the restoration of the pipe sticking out on its own, which is at the beginning of the bulleted paragraph. So the sentence before says what is required is to be understand the drainage improvements. The applicant will provide a new head wall, and you're correct, it should say restored pipe, but no further works are being carried out until planning permission has been given, which is the right approach to take. Following on from Councillor Agar's comment, since the planning committee, we discussed, as is the correct process through the scheme of delegation, a revised condition in respect of the drainage arrangements, and that requires the drainage arrangements to be carried out in accordance with the approved drainage plan, which the committee saw, but also that a head wall is provided, and a completion report needs to be provided within 3 months of the date of the permission. And for committee's information, that planning permission was issued yesterday.
Okay, so with that proposed amendment, it will read, the applicant will provide a new head wall and restored pipe, but no further works being carried out until planning permission has been given, which is the right approach to take. We're happy with that? Yep, great, thank you. Page 12, page 13, and page 14. Yep, thank you. Thank you for your help there. And then we've got the ones from the 17th of July, and this was just the annual report, wasn't it, and the reform of planning committees. So I've just got page 1, 2, 3, and a tiny bit on 4. Are we happy with those as well? Yeah, thank you very much. Great. We've also got some notes from the Conservation Advisory Panel. These are for, they're just being received by us. As always, they're very interesting. And obviously, during the time of these panels, we've had the Conservation Officer, I've forgotten his name, it's terrible, isn't it? Pardon? Collins, yeah, and it's terrible, isn't it? Dr. Collins retired, and we've now got Sheena Painlam, which is great. So they're just for noting and of interest for everybody, I would have thought. Councillor Agar?
And Chair, we also approved further works to the wall of the commandery, didn't we? You know how the commandery wall was going to, the plaster was going to be removed and so forth. So that was something that's been quite recent.
You're right, you're absolutely right. Yeah, well remembered, that's right. Because we were looking for the method statement, weren't we? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we have done that. Okay, so there wasn't a site visit today. We thought you could all go and look at it yourselves, seeing as it's just down the road, and that you probably had already. We've got no public participation or public representation. So if I move to, application item number 8 has been withdrawn by the applicant. So we don't have that one. So we're moving to item number 9. This is the archway, and this is being presented by Ros. Thank you.
So the application before you is reference 25005474, submitted by Worcester City Council and relates to Arch 64 off Foregate Street, Worcester. The proposal seeks planning permission for the change of use of Arch 64 to form a new artist studio with associated external alterations. So Arch 64 forms part of the series of Victorian railway arches beneath the viaduct at Foregate Street Station. The site lies within the historic city conservation area and was previously obscured by number 56 Foregate Street, which has now been demolished, creating a new pedestrian link to the Hive and the River Severn, and opened up Arch 64 to public view. This application seeks planning consent for change of use from storage to an artist studio, replacement of damaged cast iron windows with heritage-style double glazed aluminium units, reduction of the widened doorway, reinstating the original brick piers, and insertion of a fully glazed accessible entrance door. For completeness, the applicant has described internal fit-out works such as an accessible WC, T-point sink, damp-proof lining and new concrete floor. Members are advised that these internal works do not require planning permission and are not part of the matters for determination today. The proposal has been assessed against National Planning Policy Framework 2024, in particular paragraph 219, South Worcester Development Plan, especially policies SWDP 6, 24 and 21, and section 66 and 72 of the Planning, Listed in Conservation Areas Act 1990, which requires that special regard be given to preserving and enhancing the character of heritage assets and conservation areas. It is considered that the proposal represents a sensitive and appropriate reuse of the historic railway arch. The external alterations will enhance the front elevation and reinstate the integrity of the original arch opening. The change of use to an artist studio is low impact, sustainable and culturally beneficial, bringing an underused heritage asset into positive use. The internal fit-out works, while necessary for occupation, are not controlled through planning. Overall, the proposal conserves and enhances the conservation area, accords with national local planning policy and delivers meaningful public benefit through cultural regeneration. In conclusion, the proposal is considered to be policy compliant, enhances the setting of the viaduct and contributes positively to the city's culture infrastructure. Therefore, approval is recommended subject to the conditions set out in section 9 of the report. There has been a change to condition 4. The archaeological condition has been updated to a level 1 photographic survey.
Sorry, I thought you were carrying on. So that's it. So if you go back to, I was looking at the condition actually. So a level 1 photographic survey includes all the other bits of that. It's an addition, is it? Yeah.
Might be best if I explain. Through you, Chair, following discussions with the applicant and the archaeology advisor was concerned about making sure that there was a photographic record of the alterations to the frontage, particularly around, you'll have seen the widened entrance doorway and the lintel that was inserted, so making sure that that's recorded properly. Condition 4 was a catch-all, and it covers all archaeological works, but now we were specific about what was required. We could provide our property services team with a more narrowed condition that is specific to their needs. So there's a level 1 photographic survey, which level 1 is defined by Historic England in their guidance, and it includes a plan showing where you're taking the photos from, the photographs, and a floor plan to show the elements that are recorded. So that will be provided and then deposited with the historic environment record in exactly the same way that condition 4 is framed, but without the details. So we've got a very detailed condition rather than the more vague, wider condition.
Okay, great. That's really helpful. Thank you. Do I have any questions for officers, please? Or Councillor Cross?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, really encouraging to see spaces being brought back into use. And I really appreciate the work being done to restore the aesthetics with the brickwork, new brick pillars either side of the door, so bringing proportions back in. I just got sort of perhaps technical question, more sort of building physics questions, which may not be a planning matter, but the reason behind it is just so we don't inadvertently cause problems to something that's, I don't know, 150 years old. How old is this structure? 150? Right. So very much, porous materials. You'll have heard me talk about lime and lime mortar, etc. before. I'm just concerned if we're putting basically a room within a room, effectively here, how the moisture management is, rather than just sort of effectively tank or seal the inner. What happens about the main brickwork structure? Is there a risk? I'd like to be satisfied that what we are proposing is not going to cause long-term structural damage. I mean, in the way of lessons from the 70s, 80s with old buildings. So, are there any schemes or any proposals for ventilation between the inner lining and the main brickwork arch? Because a bit of ventilation achieves a lot of moisture removal, that's the primary thing. Second one is also about this concrete floor. That again, we've got double stress going on, because what that does is it pushes, when you're with your concrete raft, your concrete floor, it pushes the moisture outwards to the walls, and so we're going to end up with a double problem of wetter walls and nowhere for it to go. I just want to hear how that is addressed within this proposal, please, or if that's something that can be dealt with through conditions by officers. Thank you.
If you're happy for me to respond, and through you, Chair, those matters are matters for building control and not for planning. So because it's a locally listed structure, we've got no control from a planning perspective in terms of what goes on internally. You'll have heard from the officer's presentation that the City Council property team are looking at providing a damp proofing as part of the internal works, but that's beyond our remit. Our remit is the change of use and the external alterations only. So internally, answer your question specifically, I can't give you any detail because we haven't got it and we don't need it, and they're not things that we can condition.
Understand, thank you. Is there any way that we could incorporate within our planning documents or our library of things to refer to these, for example, the Heritage England technical notes, which specifically address this issue between conventional damp proofing and historic buildings, and actually the ways to resolve these without causing problem?
Through you, Chair, again, this isn't a listed building, so it would be disproportionate to recommend that. And whilst it is a City Council proposal, and I think it's laudable to be able to provide the City Council with very clear analysis when councillors are looking at it, we need to be proportionate in the same way that we would deal with anybody else's proposals, and we wouldn't be doing that for anybody else. So I would say that it would be disproportionate to provide that information.
I've got Councillor Agar. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The facade has an elegant symmetry, I would say, and the windows are so much a part of it. So I just wanted our officers to confirm, for the benefit of the committee, the colour of the window frames, the powder coating.
I believe there is a condition asking for further details to be submitted in regards to the window frame. Yeah, condition 5.
Do we have a preference for a colour, Councillor Agar?
I was hoping you weren't going to say it's going to be a glaring white, like so much double glazing is. It would need to be a dark colour, I think, black or something similar.
Through you, Chair, I think officers' preference, obviously, once we get the details, it would be black or anthracite grey or something similar.
Yeah, it's a great to see this old building come back into use, and it goes to show what the ambition that we had in terms of knocking down the shop that was on Foregate and what's been revealed. Yes, it's a great use of the building. I'm just a little bit disappointed, if I'm honest, about the change of use. I would have liked to have seen something that would have been perhaps potentially that would set the city council, set the city further ahead of others in terms of having better cycle storage. You know, I'm sure many of us encounter many residents contacting us about the cycle storage at Foregate Station being nothing short of shambolic, and I thought this would be an ideal opportunity to have a secure storage area for bikes. I'm happy to support the scheme, but I just think it lacks a little bit of ambition, that we should have had more in terms of, you know, cycle storage. And I know there are plans of cycle storage, but it's not going far enough. And I think this would have been a missed opportunity. It would have been great, but it's not to be. But I'm happy to support this.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Round. I believe there is another arch that's going to be used for cycle storage, and I think it's out to tender at the moment. But I appreciate, you know, that's only one arch. I've got Councillor Kinsley now, please.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask about the use as well, actually. So condition 7 says that the premises shall be used solely as an artist studio and for no other purpose without private and consent. I just wanted to check, given that this is unlike some of the other arches, it's not sort of a lot of glass at the front. Has the council confirmed with potential tenants that there are indeed artists that would find it a suitable place to be, given that the light levels maybe aren't as much as under some of the other arches? And secondly, is that obviously I understand that we want to have a degree of control over what the area is used for, but what we don't want is it to be vacant. So is the permission for other uses process going to be sufficiently responsive to make sure that tenants do continue to be found for the space? Thank you.
Through you, Chair, in terms of is there interest, I don't know, and that's obviously not part of the local planning authority's role. I'm sure the city property team wouldn't have put forward this use if there wasn't a use or that they'd got an idea that it is to be used, but that's what's being proposed to us. In terms of other uses, the reason the condition is placed on there is Class E, as members will now be aware, encompasses a multitude of sins, including some uses that the City Council might not wish to propose on quite an important cut through. So we want to make sure that it is an appropriate use, but also there are other uses that would require such things as ventilation and extract, which again we would wish to control rather than just being it's a change of use, it could happen and it might not require planning permission. So being able to control that I think is really important. And yes, we could do that through property services and through the council's own lease arrangements, but actually again, as my answer previously, in terms of dealing with applications in a consistent manner, we would deal with a change of use in exactly the same way for any other applicant in this way, just to maintain that control. And I think around the table, members would wish us to have that control to make sure that it was an appropriate use on quite an important corridor.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Yeah, and there are a number of other kind of arty things on there, so I presume it's like in keeping with what we're looking for kind of, as a new arts quarter. I've got Councillor Barnes now, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very keen on this proposal. I think it's good that the door's going to be reinstated to the correct size. What disappoints me, though, are the windows, because they aren't like for like or closely replicating the original appearance. When you actually compare, they are quite different. This looks like a bit of a cheap and nasty knockoff, what's being proposed, and I'd much prefer it if the actual design that is there at the moment, fair enough, we need to get rid of the ironmongery because it's probably rotten, but it would be good to have an actual like-for-like facsimile in aluminium instead. It says designed to match the original profile and rhythm, but I don't think what is proposed in this particular drawing does that. It's incredibly disappointing that it hasn't happened that way, and I'd like to see the window design revisited to actually reflect what is there currently. And just on a side note, there's a real big buddleia problem all the way along the railway line there. And we need to make sure that when we're doing the work, I don't know what you need to do to try and desist buddleias actually seeding in there, but otherwise we're going to have a non-stop problem as along all the length of the viaduct at the moment. We need to find a solution, not just for this place, but all the way along. And I don't think we're doing the whole row of arches a service at the moment by not taking account of that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Barnes. Well, two things really. I do believe that railways across the country have got a problem with buddleia. You know, it's great for biodiversity, but its roots are terrible for brickwork. And I do believe the City Council have raised it as an issue with the body who owns the bridge. The details for the windows and doors are described for condition 5. It says, notwithstanding the details shown in the approved plan, notwithstanding the details shown prior to the installation of any new or replacement windows or doors, full details including scale drawings, materials, colour finishes, glazing specification, profiles and method of opening should be submitted in writing and approved. So I don't know whether that satisfies you enough that once you see proper drawings from a proper person who's been asked to do a proper job, whether you would trust officers to, you know, I'm sure that's what they're expecting to see is a like-for-like quality installation.
Why won't we actually show proper drawings if these aren't proper drawings? No, we can only go by what's in front of us.
What we're talking about here is the scale drawings.
Yes, on 3.4.
Yeah.
Through you, Chair, if I can just refer members to the Conservation Officer's comments at 6.10, and in the 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph, they deal with comments in terms of the windows, and the Chair is correct that we are seeking for details, but I'm not sure that the details will go as far as to say that they're going to be an exact replica of what's existing, as you can see in the photo of the exposed arch. And the comments from the Conservation Officer is that whilst it would be preferable to retain the historic windows, it is clear that it is not possible and that the new units will retain the functional industrial feel of the structure. And so the overall comments, given that it's a locally listed structure and taking into account of all the other works that have taken place as to the arches when you look at them in context, the recommendation before you members is that those windows in the configuration that they're being proposed in are acceptable, although the finer details of how they're made and their construction finish, etc., will be a condition. But in terms of what you see under paragraph 3.4 on page 41, that configuration is what is proposed and that is what is being recommended.
In that case, I think I would like to propose an amendment or whatever needs to happen, or a new condition put in so that the windows are re-examined as far as that goes, because I don't think the ones that are proposed are very good. And I think that if we're doing such an important piece of work in a fundamentally important place as people get off a train, we should get it right first time, and I don't think this drawing does Worcester justice.
Yeah, Councillor Barnes, I'm looking at this drawing. Are you looking at the drawing on page 41?
Yes.
Yeah, it's quite hard to read with the window and the drawing, isn't it? What do you think, Paul?
Through you, Chair, the difference between the two, and members will be able to see, is that rather than being a single window, which comprises of the main window and the arch above, and it's a single unit, what is proposed is effectively a window which is a sealed unit with that's not what's there. So what Property Services have done is looked at the existing windows. They have replicated the space and the form, but have transformed that into what that can be achieved in a modern version of those windows. We are talking a locally listed building, so we're looking at the significance. When you look at heritage assets, and members will be aware of that consideration, it's looking at the significance and looking at how that can be related in terms of the level of significance. We're not talking a designated asset, we're talking about a locally listed asset, and the local listing relates to the whole of that viaduct area. So you're looking at the bridge as a whole. This is a small part of it. The question that members are going to be toying with is, are the windows as proposed as a single unit with effectively a fanlight rather than a complete unit? Does that adversely affect its significance when looking at the heritage asset as a whole, the whole of the viaduct, or are they acceptable as replacement windows based upon its use and its functionality and bringing this arch back into use? Those are the considerations that members will be having.
So can I just clarify something, Paul? The current windows weren't designed to be openable, but what we need is a window that can open. So inevitably it's going to look different to some extent because it needs to have that function. Okay, right, I understand. Councillor Kimberley, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I was going to ask if I could have a little bit of, really just to satisfy my curiosity more than anything. In page, and bear with me, I've been flicking up and down the pages of the report trying to follow along with the windows. On page 44, we're looking at 6.5 WRS contaminated land. The report notes that similar sites have contamination risk because of previous industrial use. I was curious if any light could be shed on what past experience has taught us about that, what kind of contamination we could expect. Is there actually any risk presented by it? Thank you.
Through you, Chair, we're not given any specific detail in terms of what this specific arch has been used for. I think WRS are highlighting the fact that where they have done projects elsewhere that they've highlighted. But bearing in mind this access to this arch was restricted for X number of years while the building was in place, we're not anticipating anything, but the unexpected contamination condition will deal with that should that arise.
I've got Councillor Desera. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, two parts to what I want to say. I fully agree with everything that Councillor Barnes has said about the look of these windows. It's clunky. It's not at all the elegant thing that's used to be there. However, the practical consideration having to be able to open it, ventilation, etc., does present a bit of a conundrum, I suppose. Is this why it's come up like this, or is it purely a costing type option that gave this drawing?
Through you, Chair, I can't answer specifically, but in our discussions with Property Services, I think cost has something to do with it, but it hasn't been done on a cheap basis, because if it was done on a cheap basis, we would just have a very bog standard double glazed unit, and that would have been, the archway would have been bricked up to provide just a single normal window. It has been looked at as bespoke window in terms of being able to provide that provision. So they have looked at it, and we have pushed in terms of maintaining the most optimal position that we feel that we can push in terms of the heritage significance of the heritage asset, and be able to provide that functionality. We feel that we've arrived at a suitable compromise, hence the recommendation for approval. But members have got to look at that. So I think, coming round very swiftly back to the question, very direct answer to your question, this is, I think, the best that we can probably get in terms of maintaining the functionality, providing a double glazed unit to meet building regulations and those necessary requirements, making sure that it's openable, ventilation, means of escape, all of the things that are needed. I do believe that's probably the best we can possibly get. There might be another solution which is far more expensive. There's always a solution out there, but I feel that this is an appropriate solution that we can recommend approval for.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Means of escape. Someone's going to shin up to the top of the fan lines again.
I'm not a building regulations officer, but...
So I'd just say that it's not a perfect world, so it's not the greatest, but it's probably good enough.
I've got Councillor Agar, thank you.
Yeah, I thought we'd moved into the debate a moment or two ago. If Councillor Round has a question on the debating point, I'll concede. Yeah.
So we'll take Councillor Kinsley's question, and then it looks like after that we'll move to debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, question / suggestion. So looking again at the design of the windows, I hadn't noticed the difference. Now you have. I'm glad, because I think actually you're absolutely right. So we've got two different units. Now that bottom unit will be constructed specifically for this. And looking at the difference between the two, on the plan, it's 4 equally spaced. On the original, you've got 3 central, and the 4th one is split either side. And I don't see that we be that much difference in the way of constructing the window to go for the 3 central and the 1 either side, at least in the bottom unit. And then it's still 2 separate units. You've got the complication in the small fan lights at the top, but at least it would sit better and reflect better, I think, what was there before. It would just look a bit different rather than the regular panes, which you're quite right, exactly were not there before. So whether that is something that could be put forward as a compromise. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, the condition does allow further details, and I think as the Chair read out quite clearly, it's notwithstanding the details shown on the approved plans, further details are required. So that's certainly something that we can discuss with property services and try to achieve the best and closest configuration to what's on site as exists at the moment. I think if we take that back as a message to property services, we will work to that basis, that we'll try to the best of our ability to get a configuration that matches as much as possible.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, because I do think, looking at the photograph and the drawing, there's a real elegance to the window that we've got at the moment. And it is slightly worrying, the drawing. If you can see, if it was white PVC with like a kind of pseudo kind of panel above it, it would look really rubbish. We know we're not going to get that because we've got conditions for detailing. So, yeah. Okay, all right. So, Councillor Agar, go back to you then.
Thank you. I've alluded to the elegant facade of this arch, which I think is vitally important to our decision today. We don't often talk about our railway heritage. I mean, when we talk about heritage in Worcester, we tend to talk about the cathedral, the Guildhall, the Commandery and so on, but we do have a very important railway heritage. We have in Shrub Hill this beautiful grey and beige coloured cornered building, which was the headquarters of the Great Western Railway. And it has a lovely tiled waiting room therein as well. Beautiful thing which has been renovated in recent years. It's lovely to see another renovation going forward of part of that heritage. And I think it's important that we value it appropriately. And I can see that councillors around this room actually do. So I'm very pleased to see that, and I'm very pleased to see a new use for this arch and the sensitivity with which it's being treated. So I'd like to feel that the reserved matters we can deal with, such as the design of the window frames, if we need to, the Chair and I can revisit it with our officers, can't we? But otherwise, I really do think this is an excellent application, and I look forward to seeing it happen. Thank you.
Councillor Cross?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, in terms of as a process, there always is a challenge with planning that the drawings one gets for planning, the construction drawings one gets for planning, are not as worked out as the final detail ones, which are for client approval post-planning. So there is sometimes with a detail like this, a challenge of, hang on, that's just an indicative window. How is that actually going to be? What's it going to look like? So I guess part of my question really, as opposed to really perhaps more for the earlier section rather than the debate, was about, is there I presume there is a mechanism where we can sort of hold and reserve the detail, for example, of the windows for input from Conservation Officer and Conservation Advisory Panel and experts, and also look around to see what's been done in other areas. Like I remember the Waverley Arches up in Edinburgh getting closed off. I mean, there's a lot of decent techniques and systems. I guess this arch infill is more recent than the original viaduct. I'm going to guess of 1920s, 1930s from the style of window. I mean, it is quite elegant the way that the centre panel involves some curved glazing rather than just being completely truncated. So rather than having a rectangular window and a fan light, actually there's a very heritage 1920s, 30s thing there. And there's a lot of argument for maintaining that look. You know, some would say actually keep the heritage being original, nod to it and move on, you know, have a different style. But that's a totally, you know, that's aesthetics and outside of our remit, I guess. In terms of contamination, I'm guessing part of the challenge is that some of the other arches have been used for car workshops, etc. And so there one does get basically oil and materials on the ground, and that classes as contaminated soil, to answer a colleague's question. So yeah, as a concept, I totally get this is something where we can't really be, it's before us because it's a city project, we can't really be over onerous because that would be disproportionate. I'd love to find a way that we can increase our library of appropriate heritage documents through, you know, historic buildings and SPAB, etc. Because there's some really valid points there that translate to these non-listed buildings, or, you know, to projects such as this. It's the fundamentals, the physics, the avoiding the problems. So I'd love to help within that process if that's something that we're minded to do. I think this is a brilliant idea, getting these spaces back into use. Sure, I would like to see more cycle parking. I hear there are schemes for that to come. We are working on what's before us, and I in terms of the debate, I'd be happy to support this. Thank you.
Councillor Rand.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry to be really negative. I'm having problems with these windows, and I have to be honest, I'm grateful to Councillor Barnes because I hadn't noticed it. And it's one of those things that you know when you see something on the internet and they say when you've seen it you can't unsee it. I now can't unsee the windows, and I'm just worried a little bit. This is, as Councillor Barnes pointed out, this is straight off from Foregate Street Station. It's a premier location. It's going to be noted by many visitors. We're trying to get as many visitors going down to the riverside through this walk. That was the purpose of opening up the archway. And I'm just wondering how many people are going to look and go, God, that's not right, when they see it done. That's a bit odd. What's going on here? And frankly, I just think that we need to look into this a little bit more and rather not jump into this so quickly. I mean, the project is great, it's wonderful, but aesthetically about these windows, I just wonder, you know, in the building trade, everything can be done. It comes down to price. And I know many people who have done heritage buildings have had to restore them and have had to pay an absolute arm and a leg to get things absolutely aesthetically just right as planners have wanted. And I just wonder whether we are not doing a real service to this archway for the sake of cost, simplicity, speed. I don't know. I just feel, I agree entirely what Councillor Barnes has said about the windows. I'm not happy with the answers I'm getting so far, but I don't want to be obstructive because I want to do as much as I can to redevelop the archways, but I'm feeling very uncomfortable about the windows. I do apologise.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor Round. Councillor Kimberley.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think I'm not going to say anything terribly original. There are no new ideas under the sun, I fear. I think that we may be in danger of making the perfect the enemy of the good. I think that the proposal that we've got in front of us is very good. It is regenerating, it is reusing a historic asset which would otherwise continue to fall into rack and ruin. How long would it take before another proposal came like this? It's time, it's effort, it's money. The fact that this is going to be turned into an artist's studio seems extremely suitable, given the surrounds that it has. It is contributing to the cultural fabric of our city. The first impression many people will be getting as they step off the train from Foregate Street Station is walking past an artist's studio. That's, I think, a really good thing for our city. Unfortunately, because we live in moving history, we live in a city whose fabric has been changed and patched over and over again. Literally, to the left of that building, you've got a wall which we have discussed in quite some detail not so long ago, which is not uniform, is not perfect, it is not pristine, but I think that is a big part of what lends our city its charm. It is the fact that it is a living city that has been updated, has been changed, has been developed upon, and has been modernized in small pieces, piece by piece, but still maintaining its identity and its heritage. I think that there is absolutely a discussion to be had on the exact form of the windows, but I think that it is important that we don't get misled, that the document is giving us a precise idea of how exactly it will look. These things are there to illustrate scale, they are there to illustrate a sense of the size of the space. They cannot ultimately give us the precise details. I mean, if we look at the lines of the brickwork represented in that drawing, it doesn't include the individual bricks. That doesn't mean to say that this is going to all be replaced with long rectangular panels. I think it's important that we keep a sense of perspective. This seems to me like a really good proposal. I want to be very clear, when I ask the question about contaminated land, I'm not asking because I'm worried, I'm asking because I'm curious. And I think it is always good to be curious and to be interested. I think this is a very interesting proposal. I would love to see it realised. I'm looking forward to supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kimberley. I'm just going back to paragraph 7.7, where it says that the proposed replacement units, blah, 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 have been carefully designed to match the original profile and rhythm of fenestration. And I would argue with that. I don't think they are matching the rhythm of the fenestration. And I think that's the fundamental problem that probably we're talking about here. You know, it looks totally different, to be honest. It's like an archway above with some rectangular windows below. I just like this really revisited, but I kind of trust officers to do that because I would imagine that's what you want to. But I don't know whether we can strengthen the conditions somehow, just to get rhythm in, or something that will mean that they relook at the balance of the window itself. Is that what you're thinking about, Councillor Barnes?
I think probably, if we look at the original windows and draw a line across where above the 5x5 panels that looks like a bar of chocolate, I quite like chocolate, and put a line across there so there'd be a half moon little window, and then it would be the small windows around the edge and then the main part. So it would still be 5 panels effectively, and that could be opening. I think that that could be a very good solution to it. So you get a half moon window still, but it would take in the very top of the middle panel, and that would open. I think that would be much closer to what we've got at the moment and still fulfill the need for ventilation in that space. But as it is at the moment, it just doesn't really fit with the architecture around of that age.
Through you, Chair, just reiterating condition number 5 and reference to the Chair's question in terms of what officers are going to be requiring. Full details, and the condition actually provides what those full details should include: scaled drawings, materials, colour finishes, glazing specifications, so that's the way the configuration of the glazing, the profile and the method of opening, and those details are to be submitted. So in terms of the details that you're requesting, they are being requested by virtue of condition, and officers are satisfied that these can be dealt with by condition, that we don't need those details up front, given the level of status of the building. And as I said earlier, I think we're very clear in terms of what members are debating and some of the concerns that members have had, and those certainly will be passed to the Property Services team and will be part of our consideration when we consider that. In terms of strengthening that, I can't think of anything at this moment in time in terms of strengthening it, but if members wish to have that strengthened, if they were satisfied that that was something that could be discussed between officers and the chair and vice chair, it could be something that could be approved subject to the condition 5 being strengthened in a way that is in agreement with chair and vice chair. But as I see it at the moment, from an officer's opinion, I feel that condition 5 is strong enough, but obviously that's a consideration for you.
Councillor Cross?
Chair, may I put that recommendation as part of our condition for debate moving forward? So I would propose that that we accept this with that condition in that strengthening of condition 5, and I would like also wonder if input during the approval process of the glazing scheme, that the Conservation Advisory Panel members could have some input as well. So Chair, Vice Chair taking the decision, but is there any scope for input through that, or is that not possible? In which case I would revert it back to, if it's not possible, I would revert it back to Chair and Vice Chair, who I'm sure will be listening anyway and are sympathetic and are in tune and informed. So thank you very much. But I would move that that be part of our...
Is that a proposal?
That is
Councillor
my
Cross?
proposal.
So you are proposing
That we
a
accept
motion to...
accept with that condition in.
Okay. And of course, it will also be amended condition 4.
Correct.
Thank you.
Just to comment, members, just to make sure that there is some clarity. In terms of the condition approval process, Chair and Vice Chair are not normally a part of that process, so that would be an officer delegation process only. I'm not sure that that would be able to be expanded by virtue of this decision, but as I've said before, officers are very aware of the way in which the committee are reading this, and will take those instructions from the committee in terms of our considerations going forward. But I can't give you the assurance that that approval process will be in consultation with Chair and Vice Chair.
Councillor Agar, I don't know what you think. Yeah,
I will have to accept that officer's advice and trust the officers and the committee process. So I remove that element from my proposal to move forward. So I propose that we move forward. Could we just hear the confirmation of what changes to condition 4 are, please?
Through you, Chair, as I understand the proposal, accepting that little bit that I've clarified, it was the change to condition 4, which requires specifically a level 1 photographic survey. But I believe the recommendation, the proposal included the strengthening of condition 5 through discussion with Chair and Vice Chair to provide additional details, and that can be discussed. But the element that I was advising against was we cannot, as part of this resolution, provide a mechanism that the conditions, which is a separate application in a separate form and a separate process, would be through Chair and Vice Chair. So strengthening condition 5, the new condition 4, and that was the proposal as I understand it.
that's the level 1 photograph for the archaeology work that we explained at the beginning.
May I move that we propose that we move on to the debate to a vote?
Councillor Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. Before we do that, increasingly uncomfortable about the windows now, really, if I think about it. Have we got an option? If we decide that we vote against this proposal specifically because we don't like this window design, would that be something that could be considered so we have a, you know, a more acceptable?
So through you, Chair,
I'm supposed to say defer, I think. I'm saying defer.
through you, Chair, there are 3 options available to members in terms of their considerations. And there is the proposal that has been put forward, which we haven't had a seconder for. So the proposal is for delegated authority to approve, subject to consultation with Chair and Vice Chair, to a strengthened condition 5 and the updated condition 4. The other option is to refuse the application on the basis of the impact, I think, of the heritage asset and the change of the windows. Something to be framed for your consideration at an appropriate point. Or the third option is that it's deferred with instructions that we will take back to Property Services, that the details of the windows, as much as possible at this planning stage, are provided to committee members because they are concerned about those impacts. So those are the 3 options. It's for approval, leaving those details to be strengthened in terms of condition 5, and those details to be approved via condition. It's for refusal based upon what you know and what you see, or a deferral because you'd like to know some additional details, but your consideration needs to be proportionate based upon the heritage asset. And I'll come back to that point if I may, and I don't want to labour the point in terms of officer feedback, but this is, again, a locally listed building. Your considerations need to be proportionate based upon that significance. Is this something that you would be asking for any other locally listed building? And would a condition suffice in terms of being able to get that over the line?
Councillor Round.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, I'm more and more irritated by these windows the more I look at them. I didn't realise that windows could be so offensive, but you know, if I'm getting offended by looking at these windows in the last 20 minutes, imagine if you're walking down that walkway and having to keep looking at those windows and getting irritated. I'm really, really sorry. I appreciate what the officer is saying, but I would like this deferred to go back and bring us something back to committee that looks a bit more in keeping with what the heritage of that archway is. And I appreciate it's hard work, but you're asking us to approve something that, frankly, I look at it now and go, it's awful. So my proposal is we defer it.
Okay, so first of all, I need to go back to Andrew's proposal and see whether there's a seconder or whether you want to withdraw.
If anybody's happy to second, then so be it.
You'll second it? Right. What were you wanting to say?
I think we are listening to people's concerns. I can see, and I'm concerned as well, but I think there is a way that actually we can come up with a compromise, and I have confidence that that compromise will be achieved, although it's not on the plans as we see it in front of us. Only one of us in this room spotted the windows. My guess is that people will be going past that, they'll be looking up, isn't that lovely, we can see that heritage now, or whatever. I'd be very surprised if there'll be many people who will go, oh, isn't that terrible, because it doesn't look like what it did before. And I understand this desire to, you know, to make sure it kind of, you know, looks as it did, but is it really worth sort of voting against this proposal now in the interest of just it's a fine scheme. It'd be good to get the building in work. Let's trust the officers that hopefully the bottom part of the window we can have the panels split so they do reflect the design, and that's a compromise. So that's why I'd like to second that motion. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just really to sort of back up what Alex said, I was actually about to put my hand up to second as well if the opportunity had arisen. I think that we are in grave danger. I think that we ultimately, in planning, are depending on a relationship of trust between members and officers. To an extent, we are always depending on officers to actually carry out and reflect in their work the views and the opinions of members of the committee. I think I'm reasonably satisfied that were it to be given to officers, is there, that would be acceptable. Is there, just for my clarity, because I don't think I've quite understood this point clearly, is there the option for Chair and Vice Chair of Planning to have a second look at the windows with officers? It is possible with this situation.
Through you, Chair, not as it stands at the moment, but that's, should Property Services provide us a plan to show what could be done, that we will certainly share that with Chair and Vice Chair. But as it stands at the moment, the proposal is to strengthen that condition 5, and we'll work out in terms of the fenestration and try and reflect the wishes of the committee as part of that. But it's not in terms of providing an additional plan.
So, Paul, just to clarify, rewriting or getting more detail into condition 5, which that will go to Chair and Vice Chair for approval. Correct. Right, okay. So you will propose further details, amend the condition, it will come to Chair and Vice Chair, we can give our feedback, and then it will then go through. Fine, okay. Councillor Kimberley.
So I would be very satisfied personally for that to be the case. I have trust in Chair and Vice Chair of the committee to convey the wishes of the room. I think that the feeling of the room has been made very clear. The overall proposal is very strong, but ultimately it is specifically the design of that window that wants some closer attention. I would be happy to trust in that, and I would support that proposal.
Okay, so in that case, I think we'll just get staff to review exactly what we're going to vote on, if that's okay. I think it would be helpful.
Thank you, Chair. So we did have an active proposal from Councillor Cross, which was seconded. I appreciate Councillor Ranji did also make a proposal. So as we have an active one which has been seconded, we will vote upon Councillor Cross's proposal, which was for approval, subject to the strengthening of condition 5. The wording of the condition will be approved by Chair and Vice Chair, not the detail of the windows itself. And the amendment to condition 4, which was it photographic survey? So that's the proposal in front of you at the moment, which you're all entitled to vote on. If that fails, we would then move to Councillor Rand's proposal for a deferral and see if we had a seconder and go from there. But at the moment, we're looking at the proposal to approve, subject to amended conditions 5 and 4.
Great, thank you, that's really helpful. So based on that, can I please see all votes in favour? Against? And abstentions? Or has everyone voted? Does that add up? Does that add up? Okay, so that has carried then. Okay, thank you. We have, I don't think we've got any other business, so therefore that's the end of the meeting. Thank you very much.